That was President Biden with his eulogy, and a lot of emotion and memories, of course, coming out of these funeral services. But we now want to get reaction and perspective. So joining us this morning, we've got Dr. Tim Blessing, a presidential historian and professor at Alvernia University.
That's right. We also have Dr. Robert McMoneagle, a political science professor at Newman University, is also here with us.
But Dr. Blessing, we want to start with you first. So tell us a little bit about what you believe was President Carter's biggest accomplishment.
You know, when I thought about this question literally just a few moments ago, of course what pops to your mind is the Camp David Accords and the Nobel Peace Prize, which he richly deserved. But I think the thing that was best occurred the day after his inauguration, and that is that he pardoned 209,000 Vietnam draft evaders. Can you imagine what this country would be going through, still going through, if we had to have 209,000 trials?
Right.
Do you have any idea what that would have been? Do you know how, I don't know that we would have a country if we had to go ahead and prosecute this. And there were certainly, he got into a lot of trouble over this. It created a tremendous outroar. But in terms of allowing the country to move on, in terms of preserving the country, and in terms of just preserving the citizenry. This, I think, was his biggest accomplishment.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating to hear, especially from your perspective. Now, we want to get to you, Dr. McMoneagle. President Carter often spoke about the importance of faith values in politics. Can you sort of describe what his view of politics and government was?
Absolutely. President Jimmy Carter, really his political philosophy was to advance human rights, both at home and abroad. And he did that consistently, really, in his personal life and in public life as well, as president and post-presidency. And he wrote a book back in the 1990s. I brought a copy of it because back in, I think it was 1996, he came to Chester County and he signed a copy, Living Faith. And it's really about how he reconciles his personal faith with serving in secular government. And it's kind of neat that I was able to get a signature.
Wow.
And really will cherish that.
Oh, absolutely.
But he walked the walk. He walked the talk, I should say.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Blessing, you were saying to me at one point in time during the funeral that this isn't Jimmy Carter's funeral. This is President Jimmy Carter's funeral. What is the difference?
Yeah, people don't realize this, but diplomatically, a president is the same diplomatically as a king or queen. They are the head of state. They're head of the executive branch, but they really are head of state. So if, say, a prime minister and a president approach a door at the same time, the president goes first. And this actually caused troubles back in 1919 with Woodrow Wilson when he met with prime ministers. But this is actually, you know, this ceremony we just had is fairly ornate, certainly much more ornate than you would expect a Southern Baptist to have. But why do we do these large funerals? And the answer is because we're not honoring just Jimmy Carter, the person. We are honoring the man who headed the state of the United States, just like a king or a queen. And I think we do a good job with that. We are a very intensely egalitarian republic, but I do think that we do a good job of honoring our former heads of state. And that, of course, is what you just saw.
Yeah. And Dr. McMoneagle, you were saying that, you know, Carter's going to be remembered as a peacemaker, environmentalist. How so?
Well, certainly I concur with Dr. Blessing in terms of the Camp David Accords, and even post-presidency, he brought diplomatic relations between Sudan and its neighbor, oversaw elections through the Carter Center, Indonesia, first free election in 40 years. But let me circle back to the environment, because as Stuart Eisenstadt said, his advisor, with the Alaska Lands Law of 1980, it's remarkable because he doubled the size of our National Wildlife Refuge System and doubled the size of national parks all in one fell swoop. Now, that was a lame duck session of Congress. He had already lost the election to Ronald Reagan in 1980, but, you know, Carter pounded the pavement. Some people, critics, accused him of being a micromanager, but he got his hands dirty and he pressured the Senate to accept a pro-environmental bill, and you know, the result is an environmental legacy. And again, as Mr. Eisenstadt said, that really, he was ahead of his time, especially today when we're looking at a global environmental crisis.
Well, Dr. Mongol and Dr. Blessing, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do want to go back to the funeral services.
Yeah, we're going to check back in and listen in now as we continue our coverage.